Hi, I'm Kristen.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
We're readers and writers.
We're sci-fi and fantasy fans, and this is the best of all worlds.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. And today we are very excited to have a conversation about one of our favorite things in novels, and that is villains.
Yes.
We both love a good villain here, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. So today we're planning to talk about, what makes a good villain for us, especially focused on the fantasy sci-fi sphere, and then go into some examples of our favorite villains from fantasy and sci-fi.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about this. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. I love villains.
Yes, it's like a good villain can really make a book just that much better.
Absolutely.
So, what makes a good villain for you?
I think the number one thing for me that I look for in a villain is I need them to not be perfectly evil. Like, I need them to have some kind of valid reason for what they're doing.
Yeah, like a little bit of like moral grayness in there.
Exactly. Like, even, and I'm not going to use this example, so I'm going to use it as a reference for this particular purpose. In the Matrix, the main antagonist is an AI, and even though the AI feels kind of evil, it feels like it has a valid reason for what it's doing, even though it's like net evil towards humans. It's still like, it feels like justified in a way.
I definitely like that because it just adds like a layer of complexity where it's like I don't agree with you, but I see why you believe what you do,
Exactly.
and that just makes it all the more compelling to me.
Exactly. I want to have a moral conundrum reading a story. I don't want to be like, oh, I should definitely hate this person. I should definitely like this person. I want to have my own decision. I want to make my own decision there.
Agreed. So yeah, that is definitely something I appreciate in a villain too.
Another thing that I find really important in a villain, and this is where it takes it from a really good villain to a fantastic villain, is when they directly push against the main character and force them to grow and to improve themselves, and like they're almost like sometimes the main character. I really like when that happens, when they're like the main character, but if the main character had gone wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely maybe my top thing for a villain, honestly, is just the way they contrast with the main character, like either as like a dark reflection of the main character or like the exact
Right.
opposite of everything the main character stands for. Like one of those two things just makes the villain so much more compelling to me.
Yeah, it adds depth to the story and it allows the character to grow in a way that's meaningful. And there's this writing advice channel that I've been following recently, and he talks all about how, like, really what makes a story compelling is the rule the character tells themselves. So, like, for example, if I let someone close to me, I'll get hurt. So, therefore, I don't let anybody close to me. A villain would directly contradict that rule and force them to either change their rule or double down on that rule. And that's where you get really compelling stories.
I agree. That's good writing advice, and I do enjoy like when the villain really forces the main character to consider what they value and whether they need to change that.
Exactly, exactly. Again, back to the moral conundrum part. Like, I want to have some moral ambiguity and to come to my own conclusions after kind of reading every. And usually I side on the side of the main character, but I want to make that choice myself.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like that's definitely something that's important for me. Is like, no, don't tell me what to believe. I'm gonna figure it out for myself, and I enjoy a story that will let me do that.
Exactly. Are there any other factors that you find important in a villain?
Honestly, for me, I just enjoy like the scary factor. Like, does this villain legitimately scare me? And like that can happen in like multiple different ways. It could be scary as in like this villain is just so dang competent at their job that it's terrifying. Or it could be like this villain's super powerful and like overwhelmingly can crush you, and that's scary. Or it could also just be like I don't know what this villain is going to do. Are they going to, do something reasonable, or are they going to just go completely out of left field and stab me in the back? Like, there's
Right.
so many different ways a villain can be scary, but there has to be like some sort of tension where I'm like, oh no, this person's bad news.
I definitely like when they're unpredictable, especially. That's a feature I really enjoy from a villain is when they're a little chaotic and you don't know if they're going to side with the main character or they're going to side on the
Hmm.
other side. I love that kind of like unpredictability.
Yeah, I've got a few examples, and one of my villains very much, treads that line where
Yes.
it's like, oh, are they gonna be good? Are they gonna be evil? We'll find out.
Yes. Well, I guess that's a good time to segue. We're going to talk about three of our favorite villains, though I will caveat that for me, sci fi doesn't have as many villains, so there's not as many that I could think of to mention for this. So these are not necessarily my top favorite villains of all time, but these are villains that are very well executed that I quite enjoy.
And for me, I'm like the exact opposite. Like, I just straight up went for my three like favorite fantasy sci-fi villains of all time. I think they're all fantasy, but mine are like these are legitimately my favorites, and they also are from very popular series, so hopefully shouldn't be many spoilers because at least the first two I'm going to talk about are for sure like very well known.
Speaking of well known, what's your first villain?
So my first villain, bringing up Game of Thrones again. There are so many good villains in Game of Thrones, but
Absolutely.
my favorite of all of them, which is a pretty good achievement, honestly, is Littlefinger, or Peter Baelish, whichever you know him by. So what I love about him is I love a good like scheming, manipulative, just super good at being a villain type villain like
Absolutely.
that. And that is absolutely what Littlefinger is. Like, he is over here playing the Game of Thrones like a pro. Like, he is like uses like people underestimate him and he uses that to his advantage. He pulls strings, he manipulates events, he literally gets a king murdered and gets away with it. Like, it's all sorts of good political drama and intrigue, and you know uh, spoilers if you haven't seen or read Game of Thrones, but in the first book, he like straight up stabs Ned in the back and is one of the
Right,
reasons that Ned
literally.
ultimately gets killed.
Yeah.
So he like in that book I was like, "Oh, I hate this guy. Like how could he do that? That's so terrible." But like as the books went on and especially after everything that happens in like book 3 and like the master plot he's involved in there is like I was like, I hate this guy, but I am so impressed by him that I also like I'm rooting for him. It
Right.
was the weirdest like dichotomy is like he is objectively not a good person,
Not at
but
all.
at the same time it's like he's so good at scheming. I can't help but admire it.
He
So,
is. And you can't really predict what he's going to do until you have a lot more context later on, which he keeps close to his chest. Like, he really keeps his own weaknesses very close to his chest, and he lets people see the public weaknesses, which is, oh, he runs a brothel. Oh, he's like weak and he doesn't have much physical strength. Oh, he comes from like a less highbrow family. But like those aren't his real weaknesses. Those are his like intentional weaknesses that he wants people to see.
mhm.
His real weakness is Ned Stark's wife.
Yeah, is he's such an interesting character. Like literally even like the name Littlefinger is kind of derogatory, like reference
Right.
to him being small and from like an insignificant house. And he carries around like such a chip on his shoulder and that really like drives a lot of his like motivations like for manipulating and backstabbing. Like he is just out to get almost like revenge for the
Right.
way he's been treated and looked down upon, and that just makes him so much more interesting. Like he's not just like a good manipulator, he's also like a manipulator with a grudge, and
Exactly.
That just makes him such an interesting character.
Yeah, he's insanely intelligent and capable. He's very well informed. He gets a lot of really good information from people. He knows how to blackmail and manipulate people incredibly effectively. And all of this is driven by his ego's desire to, one, have, why can't I think of her name? Catelyn. He wants Catelyn. When he can't have her because she dies, spoilers, he goes after her daughter. And
Yeah,
that's all he
it's
cares about.
hmm
That's all he cares about for some reason. And he's so effective. Like, he's way too good at it. When he turned his back on Ned Stark, I was so upset. But looking back, it's so
yes.
like it was always gonna, like, he would never have helped
hmm
Ned Stark. Like, he has no need to do that, or no motivation to help Ned in the slightest.
Yeah, just overall, just a interesting villain, a competent villain, and he's fun to read. It's good to just have like a villain that you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what they do next.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned Game of Thrones because I also wanted to mention Game of Thrones, and I've been kind of torn between which one because there's so many good villains in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Um,
So many choices.
there are. But I think I'm going to go with Cersei, partially because she's a point of view character, so you get to really see her mentality and her thought processes behind what she's doing. She also is a character with a chip on her shoulder about being a female.
hmm
Like, being
Yeah.
born a woman, not respected by her father. Her brother got everything he could ever want, all the respect, and yet he's squandering it. And while she's doing all these things to be a good leader and to be a competent queen, no one's giving her the time of day until she forces it and takes it near the end of the series. So she's got a lot of ego stuff going on. She's not nice to anybody. And as it goes on, you almost feel empathy for her, and then as soon as you start to, you're like, yeah, no, never mind, I don't feel empathy for her.
Yeah, she's one of those like point of view characters where it's like most, not all, but most of the characters in Game of Thrones, I feel like when I got into their head, I'm like, okay, I understand you a little better. I might like
Right.
you a little better. Cersei was like, no, I got into her head and I was like, I still do not like you.
Yeah, now I like you even less. And that's incredibly effective because, there are things that happen to her where you should feel empathy for her and you want to feel empathy for her, but then she just one ups her own evilness over and over and over again, repeatedly, to where when it gets to that shame moment, you're like, yeah, you deserve that. Like,
Yeah. I didn't feel sorry for her in that moment, and I know some people do, but I did not. I'm like, you brought that upon yourself.
exactly. No, she's incredibly effective as a villain, and I know I said I really like moral ambiguity, and I think it's because I tried so hard to like Jamie. He's also a point of view character. I came to love him. He was absolutely redeemed in my mind, but Cersei never got to that point. She's just consistently annoying.
hmm Yeah, I think her problem is like she has good points. Like, yeah,
Right.
absolutely, she was treated poorly because she's a woman, but she just uses that as an excuse to just keep digging deeper and deeper into like grudges and hatred and she thinks she's so smart, but she just keeps making the dumbest
Right.
decisions, and it's like, lady, just oh, you're so far off from what you think you're doing.
Yeah, she's kind of the opposite of Baelish in that way. Like, Baelish is very
Yeah.
effective at the cunning stuff. She thinks she's effective at the cunning stuff. Meanwhile, she's just floundering everything. She just has
hmm
power. There's a difference. He has, like, a power of manipulation, he's got the power of knowledge and honestly wit. Like, he's got a lot of wit. And she comes in here with the power of money and influence. And she thinks that that makes her better than other people when really it's more just like she just has a name that carries a lot of weight and money to back that up, so she can basically pay people to do what she wants for them, but there's no genuine loyalty to her.
And she hasn't earned it because she treats everyone terribly. So,
Exactly. Exactly. She gets her comeuppance.
but
She just
yeah,
adds a lot
she's
of texture to the story, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's definitely a good villain where you're just endlessly like, get this woman out of power, please, please,
And
please.
she never gets out of power. She just holds, she just digs her nails into that power and does not let go. Every time she gets brought down a peg by her brother or by her dad or by, circumstance, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a good good like hateable villain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's your second top favorite villain of all time?
So my second top favorite villain of all time is one that probably everyone knows because it's from Lord of the Rings. So spoilers for some reason if you have never read or watched or heard about Lord of the Rings, but my second favorite villain of all time, and this is legit, is Gollum slash Smeagol. Gollum's the more villainous half, but I think, in a story that's basically like a good versus evil type story, Gollum sits solidly like right in the middle of the good and evil, and it's literally is the example of the pole of the light and the dark. And what the whole story revolves around, what direction is he going to go? Is he going to go with the Smeagol direction and go back toward the hobbit like creature he used to be, or is he going to just embrace the Gollum and go with the pull of the ring and go to the dark? Is such a good character, and there's so many good things to talk about, but I think the thing that I like most about Gollum slash Smeagol is just the way that he interplays with Sam and Frodo and their journey. Like it's like a one of the best examples of like a villain serving as a
Right,
contrast to
absolutely.
the main characters, and it's really a tragic story, honestly. Like, I love a good redemption arc, but I also appreciate like a redemption arc
Right.
lost, and that's exactly what
He had the
Gollum and
potential.
Smeagol is. Yeah, like he had the potential right there, and Frodo is here, and he, as a ring bearer, like he understands like what Gollum and Smeagol are going through. Like he sees the Smeagol, he sees the person that he used to be before the ring corrupted him, and he wants to believe like, I want to believe you can be redeemed because I want to believe I can be redeemed
Exactly.
too. And so he's like trying to, see the good and bring out the good, and he's really focused on the redemption. And then Sam's over here, listen, I love Sam. No slight on Sam. Sam is great and wonderful and loyal. But his biggest flaw is that he is so loyal to Frodo that he just cannot see anything but a threat in Gollum and Smeagol. Like he sees Gollum. He sees like, this creature is evil and corrupted and he's gonna attack Frodo, and I can't have that. And he just refuses to trust him, refuses to, give him the benefit of the doubt. And ultimately, like the big tragedy is in the end, it is Sam's inability to trust Gollum to any like fraction that ultimately leads to Gollum's just like, nope, I'm gonna betray them, and he chooses the dark, and that's it. And it's so sad because it's like Sam is just such like a wonderful, good-hearted character,
Right.
but his loyalty creates a blind spot that ultimately like destroys Gollum's chance at redemption. And it's so sad.
Exactly. And it's really tragic for Frodo as well because, like you were mentioning, Frodo is seeing himself in Smeagol slash Gollum, and he sees like, okay, like this is what I could turn into. And then he watches his best friend hate this guy. He's like, will my best friend turn on me if that happens to me? Like, I'm sure that's going through his head as he's like watching this all play out. And so he's extra defensive too of Smeagol. Like, we can't hurt him. Like, we have to have faith in him. And Sam's like, no.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just, it's such a, like, you understand where all three of these characters are coming from, and it's such a tragic situation, and the interplay there, and just the way it really, like, plays on the themes of, like, the good and the corruption of evil that Tolkien's, like, weaving throughout Lord of the Rings. It's just, it's one of my favorite parts of the story. It's just that whole exploration there, and it's tragic, but it's
Yeah.
good, and it's so good.
Yes. Well, I think this is a good one for me to bring up here then, because one of the villains I wanted to mention is called Ushikawa from 1Q84. So 1Q84 is a novel about these two characters who get put into like an alternate reality, where there's like this cult happening and all this crazy stuff. And Ushikawa is a private investigator who is catching on to the fact that they're onto something, and he's hired by the cult to find them and to, like, get evidence that they are doing these things against the cult or whatever. So he's like a individual actor, but he's also so, like, he's so beholden to his job that, like, he's almost willing to sacrifice anything in order to succeed. And when we first meet him, he seems really innocuous. He meets one of the characters. He seems really sweet. He's like, I'm just an agent. I'm just trying to ask you some questions. Meanwhile, he's like really ugly, annoying. Like, he's described in detail of how ugly he is.
Oh no.
Like balding, like teeth sticking out, like he's smoking all the time. So he's just like a really unappealing character from the outside, which is what helps him be so anonymous, because he's just like overwhelmingly average. But I think he just gets described as ugly because it's almost his personality that's ugly as well. But he becomes a point of view character in the third act of the story, and as you kind of get to know him a little better, you almost feel empathy for him, and in a way you want him to succeed, even though by him succeeding the other two main characters would be in a really bad spot. Kind of like an example like with Baelish, where you wanted him to succeed. Ushikawa, you want him to succeed even though him winning would mean the main characters don't.
Oh,
Yeah, so it
yes.
creates a lot of really, really good tension in the story later on. And I really enjoy him because he's more morally ambiguous and redeemable, but also very loathsome. He does some things that are
Yes.
very loathsome.
Oh no. Yeah, that's always so interesting. It's like, why are you doing such bad things? I know you can be better, but no, but no.
Yeah, as you learn more about like who he is and where he comes from, it starts to make sense why he is the way that he is. But it's still very, very frustrating at the same time. Like, come on, Ushikawa, just do the right thing. Come on. But also, like, you can do it. I want you to be happy. And that's a really good novel if anyone is into like speculative sci-fi alternate universe stuff. It gets weird, let me tell you. Murakami is an author who doesn't hold back from the weird, but it's a really good one.
Nice.
What's your last one?
We've made it on to the number ones. Exciting.
Yes.
So my last one, it's a little, breaking the rules a bit. It's technically not a person, but it's the facts are this is my favorite villain. It's from the Wheel of Time, and out of the Wheel of Time, there are so many villains in that story, so many factions that are bad that interact with other factions and clash with other factions, and like you've got the full spectrum of villains represented throughout the story. But easily, I think the villain out of all of them that is the most terrifying and most interesting, and every time they show up, I'm like glued to the page, and that is the Shan Chan. So the Shan Chan, for anyone who hasn't read Wheel of Time, are basically just this they're like a culture, like this people group from a continent across the sea that are like coming to the main continent and trying to invade. But they have this culture that's very based in like hierarchy and slavery, and it's real uncomfortable. Like
Love that.
it's not good.
Love
Like
that.
this is a very, very bad culture. But the thing about them that is the most terrifying is, a lot of the main characters in the Wheel of Time are like women who have powers who can channel. And the Shan-Chan is this culture that believes that any women who have magic powers should be chained up and leashed like
Oh.
a dog and treated like not a human and used as weapons. So, not great.
Whoa.
It's really, really scary, like the way they dehumanize these women
Right.
who, like, in the continent the story is based on. Like they're all like independent, powerful, like have a lot of agency, and then this culture comes in, and they're like, nope, you are dogs now. And that's, to me, I don't know. As an independent woman, I find that
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying. And so every time the Shan show up, I'm like, oh no. But
Yeah.
it's oh no in a good way. Like, oh no in the way that I'm like, this is like the most terrifying thing that could happen, and I am glued to the page and I want to know if the characters are going to escape or not. And it's it's so interesting, and I think what I like most about it is it's not like this is an institution that is not just, oh, this one big bad person says that we do this, so we do this. Like, no, this is ingrained in their culture and has been in their culture for years and years. And it's just this sense of like, how are we ever going to fix this? Like, this is just what these people have been taught to believe. Like, they believe they are morally right to be doing this. And it's like, how could you possibly like affect change to show them that like, no, slavery is bad.
Right.
Treating people like animals is bad. And it's just it's so compelling to me. And there's one particular like Shan Chan character who's like not really a person in power. Like she's like a ship captain. And her story revolves a lot around, kind of coming to question those beliefs, and that's why she's one of my favorite, like, underrated characters in Wheel of Time. Is
Mini
just I
redemption arc
love
I hear.
yes, I'm like I love the exploration of it. Kind of goes into the are we the baddies trope that we talked about in episode
Yes.
one. Is like, oh, maybe we were wrong to believe this. Like,
Yeah.
so it's so fascinating, and it's kind of funny that out of a story where you've got like like an evil, like dark, primordial force, and then you've got like these ancient like dark magic channelers, and you've got like the literal Spanish Inquisition, and you've got monsters, you've got all these things. Out of all of them, the scariest by far is the Shan-Chan. Not even close.
And that almost feels like, because in a way it feels like that could actually happen. Like you could see a group, and I feel like we've seen groups like that throughout history that
Hmm.
would, they see a threat and they want to utilize it for their own, and no, regardless of the humanity of doing so. Like they see it as like, okay, if I don't take this threat, then it becomes a bigger threat to me, so I might as well use it myself, like as a weapon. That's a very
Yeah.
human thing to do, and that I
Hmm.
think is what is almost. I mean, I haven't read this, but even just the description of it sounds pretty horrifying, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it is horrifying, and like it's horrifying because it just does feel real. Like I'm pretty sure the like Robert Jordan, the author, like grew up in the American South, so I'm pretty sure there were some like that like pre-Civil War like Southern culture with
Right.
slavery and all of that. I'm pretty sure that was a strong influence into the Shan-Chan as a culture, and yeah, I can definitely feel that, and I think that just makes it stronger. It's like, oh, like this is this
Yeah.
is a very human form of evil.
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite types of evil, honestly, are the ones that feel very human and feel like you could encounter this in the real world, and that just
Exactly.
makes it so much scarier.
Exactly. Like Peter Baelish, for example, is super fun, but he's so intelligent it almost feels like rare to see somebody like that and unlikely, whereas something like that feels like something we could see even in, like, 2026. Like, we could see a group of people
Yep.
like that coming out, like, absolutely. I mean, they probably are actively existing right now, and hopefully we're sheltered enough and we don't have to
Stay
experience
away, stay
it.
away.
Exactly. But I mean, speaking of things that feel very relevant to real life, I think I would be
Hmm.
remiss without mentioning Hunger Games. Not only is it one of my favorite dystopians because of the fact that it feels so realistic and plausible, but the main antagonist and the main, like, villain from the series is incredibly effective, and I think that's part of why the show's so popular. Like, it is really cool. Like, Katniss is great. The whole, like, story of, overcoming your repression and, you know, the system that you're in, like, that's all, like, really inspiring, but I don't think it works quite as well without a villain like President Snow, who is so. First of all, you've got 1984 level of surveillance that President Snow uses to his advantage, and he doesn't necessarily, like, stop her or, like, put her under, because he knows that, like, to do so would actually add, like, he's very intelligent in a way that he knows how to play the political game very effectively to manipulate people en masse. So, like, Peter Baelish is more manipulating people on an individual scale. Like, he's manipulating these individuals to get where he wants, whereas President Snow is manipulating the society as a whole. And he's manipulating the
Hmm.
people in the capital to keep them complacent. He's manipulating the people in the different districts. You've got the high collar districts that have a little bit more power so they feel better than everybody, and then you've got, like, the really repressed districts. And those are all by design. Like, that's almost
Hmm.
exclusively his design. He's been the one in charge of this world for 65 years or 64 years, so a long time. A long
Yes, a
time.
long time.
A very, very long time. And I really appreciate the way that we get a little bit of a backstory for him. I know that it is a controversial book. I've seen people really hate it, and I've seen people really like it. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because it's all from President Snow's point of view, which makes it really intense to read. I mean, we're talking reading the antagonist's point of view,
Hmm.
and we're watching a fall from grace kind of story. Like, he starts off, he's young, he's fairly optimistic. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like he fell in love with Lucy Gray.
Oh yeah, I think he absolutely
Yeah.
did.
And I think he didn't like that weakness in himself eventually when he came to realize that she didn't love him back and that she was doing that to survive. I think that broke him in a way. Like, I think if she had been able to love him back, he might never have been evil. But because she didn't love him back, that kind of broke him and made him really doubled down on some of his worst, most egotistical traits. Like, he starts off this guy who just wants to, like, help his family. They're poor. They're not, like, the number one family by any means, but they're still upper middle class, right? They're, like, just the bottom of upper middle class. They're like the
Hmm.
upper middle class who have fallen because of this war. Like, they don't have money the same
Yeah.
way. And so he's got something to prove in order to protect his family, in order to give them what they quote unquote deserve. And he thinks he's doing, I mean, he's basically the reason
Hmm.
that sponsors exist, which is kind of crazy when you think about how important sponsors were in the main series. And then he's got the influence of the professor. We just looked up her name, Gall, Professor Gall,
Yeah. Hmm.
who's just pure evil. Absolutely pure evil. She's the creator of the mutts in the first place. Just straight. She's the reason Jabberjays
Hmm.
exist. She's just not a good person. And she
Yes.
becomes his mentor, which is, like, the worst possible person for this guy
Yes,
to
I love a good evil mentor.
yeah. And I really like how you know, he's got this fall from grace. He almost has some redeeming qualities. Like even at the end, right? Spoilers for the last of the books. There's a moment where bombs are dropped on children, people come in, the medics come in to help, and then bombs are dropped again. And everyone assumes that that was President Snow because they're like, oh, this guy has no level he won't go to. Even he wouldn't have gone to that level. Like, even he is like, that's too evil. Like, when somebody like President Snow has a level that he says is too evil, you know something's wrong with what you've done.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's such an interesting character because like you can see where he started off and
Mm-hmm.
like how he was just corrupted by the society he lived in and his like desperate need to be like an important part of that
Mm-hmm.
society. And I love a character like that because it's like oftentimes, you know, talking about villains who feel real, like
Mm-hmm.
villains are very much shaped by the society they live in.
Absolutely.
And where it's like you could have been a better person, but you were corrupted by the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an interesting type of villain to me.
Yeah, it's a relatable villain. Like, you can see he had the potential to be a really powerful force for positive change because he's very, like, very willful. Like, when he puts his mind to something, he's gonna do it.
Hmm.
Imagine he had used that for good. Like, the world would be
Uh,
completely different. There'd be no more Hunger Games. Like, I mean, the whole main series wouldn't even have existed if
yeah.
if he became a good person. But you know, here it is.
Alas.
And in a way, he seemed genuinely convinced. Like, he was genuinely convinced that the Hunger Games was how to prevent bloodshed. Because he was old enough to see the war before the Hunger Games. I mean, he was a child
Hmm.
when it happened, but he in a way actually genuinely believed that the Hunger Games would prevent unnecessary bloodshed.
Hmm. Yeah, like he lived with the consequences of that first war, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense that he would believe that extreme measures were necessary to prevent something like
Mm-hmm.
that from happening again.
Exactly. I mean, I don't agree with his choice, but
Yeah, I definitely
I.
don't agree with that. Like murdering children, not good. I
Yeah.
know, wild place to put my foot down, but
I know, kind of controversial to say, but
kind of controversial.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, like I said, none of these three villains that I've mentioned are my number one because most of my favorite villains are from anime. Because anime knows how to make some good villains,
Yes.
but they're not books.
Yeah.
They're anime. But I definitely want to mention my honorable mention, which is an anime, but I'm curious first for your honorable mention because I think you're also going to mention an anime slash manga.
Yeah, so my honorable mention here is Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, I could talk forever and ever about Full Metal
Yes.
Alchemist because I just love it, but the reason it didn't make my list is because there are so many good villains, but I think the best part about the villains in Full Metal Alchemist is the way they weave together.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got all sorts of different, you know, factions and groups of villains
Mm-hmm.
and the way they interact and conflict and like they've got their whole own thing going on
Right.
separate from the protagonists, which is really cool. And I don't want to talk about it in too much detail because it gets kind of spoilery, but if you like good villains, highly recommend Full Metal Alchemist, either the manga or the anime, both amazing.
Yes, I love Fullmetal Alchemist. I mean, ever since I first read it and was like, wow, things can be dark like this. I think I was in like sixth grade when I first started reading Fullmetal Alchemist. I was like, whoa, the Japanese are crazy. They really go super dark. And yeah, just when you understand the full context of the homunculus and the philosopher's stone and how they all weave into the whole grander scheme of the story, it's just yeah, I mean, like you said, all the villains are really interwoven, and to pick one is kind of difficult.
It's so hard. So I'm like, all right, that'll just be my honorable mention.
Yeah.
If you like villains, Fullmetal Alchemist,
Yeah.
highly recommend.
Exactly. And speaking of an anime slash manga that's full of amazing villains in a similar and yet different way is Hunter x Hunter. So Hunter x Hunter has a lot of different villains. So a few of them really stick out to me as being very effective for different reasons. And I think we're going to be hitting on some of the reasons that you mentioned, like the different types of villains that you like. So the first one, his name is Hisoka. He is chaotic. So you never know which side he's going to take. Is he going to take the side of the main characters? Is he going to work with them? Is he going to stab them in the back if he works with them? Or is he going to actively work against them? And he does all of that throughout the series. He works with them, he works against them, he makes deals with them. Because he is primarily focused on one thing, which is to have the best possible fight he can have. Like, that's all he cares about. And so he does a lot of really chaotic things in order to get what he wants. And then that's juxtaposed with this guy named Chrollo, who's also a villain, but he's like an INFJ villain, which is really fun for people who are into MBTI. INFJs are usually like the stoic philosopher type people. And to see them be a villain is really fun. And then finally, the last villain is Meruem, who is really, really powerful, like overwhelmingly powerful. Like impossible to beat level of power, but he's got the maturity of a child because he is basically a child. He's only been alive for like 30 days by the time the main character,
wow.
Or maybe like 3 months, very short period of time. Like he's got a very low lifespan, and he's a character that actually, in my opinion, gets redeemed right before the end. Like there's some really redeeming qualities about him, but overall, like, these villains all directly push against the main character, forcing the main character to grow, but adding a constant tension and fear throughout the entire story that makes success feel impossible. And yet somehow, you know, without spoilers, it's an anime, so of course the good guys are gonna win.
Listen, that's my favorite kind of success, is when it's like, how are they going to succeed?
Exactly.
And then they pull it off. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
Exactly. The how is the really interesting part for me, especially in the anime. It is full of, those are only 3 of the there are so many more. There are so many. It's full of villains. Like, those are just the top 3 that I think are really popular as well. Especially people love Chrollo because he's, you know, the INFJ. He's so sweet, but also evil.
Listen, as an INFJ, I approve an INFJ villain.
We need more of them. We really do. They can be sometimes
Yes.
the best because they're really good at the emotional manipulation game. But yeah, I could talk about villains all day long. I really wish we could talk about some other villains that are not sci-fi fantasy. But for those of you guys who are listening, I'd be very curious who are some of your favorite villains. They could be sci-fi fantasy or otherwise, but if they are sci-fi fantasy, I'd love to know because I'm always down to read more. Kristen got me convinced. I'm starting to read Eye of the World, so
Yes.
will I read the whole series? That is yet to be seen, but I'm already starting to feel like I'm attached, so
It's good. Do it.
3 years
But
of my
yes.
life later.
Honestly. But yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear about your favorite villains and why you love them, and send us the recommendations. We love a story with a good villain, so
Yes, especially if you can find
yes.
some sci-fi ones, because man, it was hard to find sci-fi villains because all my books that I read are so dystopian that like the world is the antagonist, not the people so much. So yeah, I'd be very curious for some sci-fis with some good villains.
Yes, so let us know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share, all the good
Yes,
stuff.
do all the things.
Appreciate you joining us, and see you guys next time.
Woo.